Live, everyone. We are live. Boy, that was quick. Look at that. You push the button and suddenly you're live. Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's pre-show for our SY0-701 Security Plus Study Group. It is the Security Plus live stream today. We're just getting things started. You can see, well, we need to pause this. You can see that we have about 9 minutes left until the actual show begins. This is the part where I check all of my settings up here. That is not showing. Get a camera going there. Boom. That looks good. I think we're in pretty good shape there. The stream is looking marvelous. Looking fantastic. Hello, chat room. I need to pop out the chat. Pop out the chat. Pop out the chat. There we go. And there's the chat room. We can make that a little bit smaller over here. Pull on the screen help. There we go. Oh, I hope everybody is doing well. It is our last live stream of the month, but don't worry, we've got more live streams in the coming weeks. There's lots of stuff going on here for sure. People are checking in from everywhere, and of course, if you'd like to put your virtual pin into our virtual map in a virtual way, you can do that by following the link on your screen, professormesser.com/QA. Oh, chat room, you're so nice. It is a nice setup. This is a setup that has evolved through the years. I really like where it is right now. It's taken a while to get everything exactly where I needed it to be, to get it in a way that was modular for me, to get the lighting the way I like, to get the audio working better the way I like, those types of things. So we're getting there. Hello, Malk. Good to see you. How are things in St. Vincent? Hope everything is good. Oh, we've got a busy season, I think, ahead of us. We're sort of trying to watch for what's going on in that warm water out there. It's that time of the year. We're starting to migrate over into watching the waves of come off of Africa and see what happens as it comes across the ocean. Oh, what fun times. What a great time of the year. I'll figure out the details. Thank you for joining us, everybody. Get comfortable, grab something. We're going to start at the top of the hour. We've got about 7 minutes until we get going, and we will get there. Yes, it is Florida in the summer. That's where we are. And in one of the things, I do these at noon, and as many of you know, I'm in Central Florida, and as many of you know, in Florida, around this area, every afternoon it rains. Every afternoon there's a storm somewhere. So that's what we're doing. We're doing those types of things. Not that you're planning to fail. Chris asks, how does the CompTIA retake certificate works? When you purchase a voucher, you have the option to add on a retake for $49. And when you use the voucher, if you pass, the voucher's done. You can't use it anymore. It's one voucher for one exam. So for instance, for A+, you can't buy a voucher with a retake and somehow get it to use across two separate exams, different exams. Only can be used towards the same exam. So the only way it works is if you fail. That's not a great way to describe it, but functionally that's the way it works. It is one where you use the voucher. If you pass, done. Now you have to buy another voucher to take the next exam. If you fail, you do not have to buy another voucher. You use the same voucher code and it works twice on the same exam. You cannot use it across other exams. So that's why. And that's how it works. So it's a little bit of insurance. It's a little bit of hedging your bets to see if it actually, if you get all the way through it. So that's what we're talking with there. That is the retake option. And they have more details on it. If you scroll down on the voucher page on my site, and I think on the CompTIA site as well, I show the terms and conditions, which helps quite a bit to explain, oh, this is how it works. This is how you would use it, kind of thing. Oh, we got a lot going on. It has been a very, very busy set of weeks to do this. So that is exactly the way these works. Vouchers have gone up every time. What's gone up? What has gone up? The vouchers, the pricing on the vouchers did change the beginning of June, but it hasn't changed in a year and a half. The voucher costs have been exactly the same for a year and a half. And then they just updated them in June. And the update was not a significant amount. I think I have the percentages somewhere, but it's 5%, 7%, somewhere in there. Not a huge difference for doing that. How different is the 701 from the 601? It is very different. About half of the exam objectives are different. That's a big change. It was a significant update. There is an article on my site that talks about the differences between the 701, 601, and I give a lot of detail. We can look at that in the after show if you'd like. You're more than welcome to submit a question for the after show at any time by going to professormesser.com/QA. That is what is on your screen. And you can submit questions there as well. It's the tab right at the top. So Dylan says, since I have the retake voucher, should I take the test when I think I'm kind of ready and then focus on things I miss? There is a strategy there, right? You could go into it with what you think might be good enough to pass, knowing that you can take it again for no extra cost. I get it. I would much rather you plan to pass first time through. You've got the exam objectives. You have every bullet for every topic they could ever ask of you. Why not just learn it all the way the first time? That's my perspective. And if you don't use the voucher, you should take that as a bonus. Take that as something that came out of it, that you spent the $49 for nothing and you're happy about it for a change. Is it important to memorize every acronym? I think the ones that are important will be acronyms that you learn organically as you go through the exam objectives. I don't think that you need to spend time memorizing acronyms. I don't think that's a useful part of your time. I think it's more useful to learn the exam objectives, and then the acronyms just sort of get embedded into your brain naturally. That's my perspective. So we'll figure it out. Oh, we got a lot going on here. If you want to get into IT, would you start with Tech Plus or go to Security Plus? If you wanted to get into IT with no formal experience and no existing job in IT, I'd really recommend looking into the A+, although technically you should look at the job postings in your area to see what they are asking for. Because if you are in an area where there's a lot of federal government U.S. work, like you're in Virginia, D.C., Maryland area, Security Plus might be a better choice. So you need to go look and see what the positions out there are looking for in your area. I have a video. It's part of the YouTube video description of this video, how to get a job in IT with no experience. And I talk about that in the video of what do you do? What certifications do you need? Do you need a formal education? Do you need to do some type of labs or hands-on? What other things are important? I have it all in that video. It's all there. So you can watch that and I kind of give you an overview. And that includes taking practice exams. That includes reading a book. That includes watching videos and doing all of this. So we will see that happen. We got about a minute and 10 seconds before things begin today. Kind of getting things going here, making sure everybody is joining and looks good. Yep, everything looks very good with the stream settings. People are hanging out, coming in. Yep, everything looks fine. We're in relatively good shape. Ever thought about starting an app? I don't know what the app would look like at this point. Of course, we've thought about it and then couldn't come up with a good reason to have one. So I don't know if that's really the right answer or not, but that's what we came up with at the time. I don't really have it's one of those scenarios where if you lock yourself into a particular platform, then people on other platforms don't have access to it. So I'd much rather create content that can be used across any system, any computer, any operating system, or even printed, like in a book. So that's what I'm shooting for. That's our big goal. Kong says, passed my Security Plus yesterday, 768. Congratulations on your new Security Plus. I need to have a little soundboard. Yay. Or a big horn. Oh, look, top of the hour. Look at that, 12 noon. That means it's time for us to get started. Let's put my big picture up there. Let's shift this into our keynote so that you can actually see it. We want a green light. We got a green light. And if we push the green light, that looks good. This looks good. That looks good. Let's do a live stream, everybody. What do you think? Sounds good to me, too. Let's do it. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the June 2025 Professor Messer SY0-701 Security Plus Study Group. This is the study group where I ask you questions that come directly from the CompTIA exam objectives. We get to see just how well you know your Security Plus content. These are all new questions I create for you every month, so we get to really test ourselves to see how well we do with the Security Plus exam objectives. If you would like to join us, if you're here live and you would like to vote online with us, you simply go to the URL right there at the bottom of your screen, which is professormesser.com/QA. That will open up for you a question and answer and a number of other things that are there that will help you with understanding how to answer the question that is there. So I have a question for you, as a matter of fact, right now. If you were to visit that link, here is the question, and it asks, which of the following would best describe the last A in the AAA framework? Now, if you think that sounds familiar, you would be right. That is our only question of the day that comes from a previous study group. This is one we did yesterday, was this particular question. Which of the following would best describe the last A in the AAA framework? And one of the ways that we are able to answer these is by using the link on your screen. One of the standing rules we have for the study group, of course, is please no answers in the chat room. Please no hints in the chat room. We are going to now show you the possible answers that you can choose from. Is the possible answer a user logs in with a username, password, and random token value? Is it all visitors connect to a guest VLAN? Is it users are required to create a password 10 characters or longer? Is it that members of the executive team are assigned a more relaxed QoS policy? Or is it that login durations are shown in a report? So we have a number of different options there. If you think you know what the answer is, lock your answer in. We will be coming back to this question in just a moment. Oh, we got a lot of people answering on that one. Isn't that great? I love that you are here answering those and being available for this. Thank you again for joining us. We really could not do these live streams without you. One of the nice things is that we're able to provide this on a live stream on YouTube. But of course, if you're not subscribed to our YouTube channel, you might not even know that we went live. So if you're not a subscriber, please check that out at professormesser.com/YouTube. We also have a weekly Security Plus pop quiz question that I email out to all of you, to thousands of you every week. But I also make them available on the service formerly known as Twitter. You can go to professormesser.com/Twitter or professormesser.com/X. Of course, we also make that same question available on Instagram, because who doesn't like a pretty picture with their pop quiz question of the week? I sure do. And there's also other links. If you'd like to find us on your favorite social media, just type in professormesser.com/ the name of the site you would like to find us on, /Facebook, /LinkedIn, /Discord, and others. And if we're not on your favorite social media, let me know. I'll find a way to get there so that you can have access to all of these great training materials. Today, we're going to be talking about questions that come directly from the SY0-701 exam. This was an exam that was released on November the 7th of 2023, and we estimate that it will retire sometime next year, May 2027 time, or 2 years from now, May 2027 timeframe. I'm ready to start the new course already. So we got plenty of time to go through the process of learning this content with the current set of exam objectives. If you're studying for your Security Plus right now from your 701 study materials, you are studying from exactly the right content. We also have a single exam, thankfully. We don't have to take more than one exam to earn your Security Plus. You pass this single exam that takes 90 minutes of your time. You get a maximum of 90 questions on the exam. You probably will get fewer than 90 questions, but they could ask you up to 90. And the passing score that you're shooting for is on a scale from 100 to 900, and you need to earn a 750. So it's difficult to calculate that and figure it out. I think that's by design. Just do the best you can and hope it turns out to be a 750, and you've now earned your Security Plus certification. The exam itself consists of multiple choice questions. We've already seen one of those today. It also consists of performance-based questions. We will talk about what a performance-based question is really in just a moment. I've got a performance-based question for you today that's brand new, as we do with every study group. Well, of course, all of my training materials, all of my video courses are available on YouTube to watch for free. You don't have to register. I guess you have to register with YouTube. You don't have to do anything special to gain access to these videos. They're not behind a paywall. You don't have to become a member. You don't have to become a patron or any of those things. It's just always available for something you can go out to YouTube and watch whenever you would like. But of course, we have course notes, we have practice exams, we have other study materials that are going to help you as well. Those can be found on our website at professormesser.com/701SB. That is our 701 Success Bundle. This has a lot of information that can help you with your Security Plus studies, and you might find some things there that will help you as well. Feel free to have a look at professormesser.com/701SB. After we're done here today, the video replay of this will be available immediately on YouTube. I also create an audio-only podcast distributed version. So if you have a podcast listening app that you like to use, you can add this to your app, where it will automatically be downloaded and available wherever you happen to be. So if you're driving, you're working out, or you're somewhere you can't watch a video, this is another option for you. Same content, of course, same audio. I'm just putting it into a different format that fits very well into that very small podcast file. You can find that at professormesser.com/podcast. We also have a lot of great content over on YouTube. And one of the things that you will notice is about a day after we do our live stream, suddenly the YouTube video description is full of timestamps pointing you directly to questions, directly to answers, and directly to things that happen in our after show. These don't appear magically. They're thanks to the hard work of my marketing manager, Lori, who's watching this on a replay. Hi, Lori. She is the one that is putting all of this together. So if you have enjoyed using those links, and give Lori a hello in the chat room and a thanks. She's watching that replay go by as she's watching this probably at 2x speed. So she's not really participating live, but she is participating afterwards in a very important way, something that we hope will help you as you go through not only this live stream, but also go back through our archive of 701 live streams. When we are done here, we will be over on Discord, as I usually am when I'm not in a live event. You can find us at professormesser.com/Discord, where there are thousands of people there that are studying for their A+, their Network Plus, their Security Plus exams, and other certifications. We have a lot of people studying. We even have it set up so that you can start your own test room that you manage. So you can decide who gets to join you in your study room. You can lock it. You can have certain people join. You can stream your video. You can watch videos together. You can ask questions of each other. And when everybody leaves the room, it just disappears automatically. That's over on our Discord. We'd love for you to join us. Go to professormesser.com/Discord. Now, eventually you will need to take your Security Plus exam. It would be nice if you were able to do that. And one of the ways that we try to help with that process is to make it a little bit less expensive. You do have to pay for that exam, but on my side, if you happen to be in the U.S., Canada, or U.S. territory, it's like I cut it off there with the graphic that I have. But if you are in the U.S., Canada, or U.S. territory, these voucher discounts are available to you for any of the A+ exams. Not only do you get a discount just by going to professormesser.com/vouchers, I also give you a little bit extra. You get a copy of my Exam Hacks ebook, which is something you can't buy. It's only available with my Success Bundle or when you purchase a voucher. This has tips and tricks in it that I've compiled, that I've created, that I've gathered sort of through the years, things that can help you with the study process and strategies you can use during the exam itself to maybe get you a few extra points. And who doesn't want a few extra points during their Security Plus exam? Find out about the vouchers, the Exam Hacks ebook, and so much more at professormesser.com/vouchers. Let's go back to that question I asked earlier. The question was, which of the following would best describe the last A in the AAA framework? Would it be that a user logs in with a username, password, and random token value? Is it that all visitors connect to a guest VLAN? Is it that users are required to create a password 10 characters or longer? Is it that members of the executive team are assigned a more relaxed QoS policy? Or is it that login durations are shown in a report? Let's see what you answered. I'm going to close the poll there, and we're going to see that 65% of you say the answer is that login durations are shown in a report. So the important part here for this question, I think, is knowing what the AAA framework actually is. The AAA framework is a framework that provides us with a way to authenticate, to have some type of authorization, and as we described in the last A in the AAA framework, we need some type of accounting. We're not talking about balancing your checkbook. We're talking about keeping track of who authenticates, how many times have people tried to authenticate and have failed, how many people have authenticated, and then how long did they stay online, and then when did they log out. All of that information is valuable, especially to a security team that is compiling information about who's visiting the network. So anything relating to accounting, being that last A in the AAA framework, is what we're focusing on. And if the last A is accounting, we need to look through the different options to see which one of these have anything to do with accounting. Well, if we look at the options here, 2% of you said members of the executive team are assigned a more relaxed QoS policy. How nice for them, but it doesn't have anything to do with tracking who logs in, who logs out, and how long they stayed on the system. 2% of you said all visitors connect to a guest VLAN. That really, there's probably no authentication associated with that, and probably no tracking of it if it's a guest VLAN. There's no accounting associated with connecting to a particular network, so we're going to say that that's not the right answer. Only 2% of you chose that one. 5% of you said that users are required to create a password of 10 characters or longer. That's certainly important for authenticating, but it doesn't help us at all for accounting. 26% of you say that users log in with a username, a password, and a random token value. That's multi-factor authentication. So that's our first A in the AAA framework, not the last A, so that one does not count. The one that 65% of you went with is the obvious answer here. The one that login durations are shown in a report. That login duration directly focuses on the accounting part of this. And if you were looking through all 5 of these to decide what would best describe the last A, having a report showing login durations is spot on with the last A, the accounting of the AAA framework. So there, we did a great job on that question. I think many of you either knew that one right off or you remembered from last month. Good for you. And this also proves that you're now able to get in, answer questions, find out more about the questions available to you. That this is something that will help you just stay on that page throughout this entire live stream at professormesser.com/QA, and you'll be able to answer any of the questions that show up. In fact, speaking of which, I have a new question for you. As many of you know, the first new question of every study group is a performance-based question. Performance-based questions are questions that are simply anything but multiple choice. So multiple choice questions are very similar to the one we just had, where there was a question and there were multiple options to choose from. Even if you didn't know the answer, you could have guessed. And in this particular case, you had 5 different choices to pull from here. 5 different ones. So this is a pretty good example of how you could just guess and get free points. Well, CompTIA does not want you to be in that situation. They would like you to be able to answer questions that would not automatically give you points. And that means they'll ask you questions in any format they'd like. Matching question, fill in the blank, drag and drop. Maybe it's a question they put you at a command prompt and have you perform a function, although in Security Plus there are no more command prompts. So that's one we don't have to worry about for Security Plus. But I have for you a performance-based question of the month that you will be able to answer. This question today is a matching question, and it asks, match the device to the description. Match the device to the description. And this is one where we can focus on 4 different descriptions. Those descriptions are connect to one remote device to manage multiple servers. The other one is block all known app vulnerabilities at the internet ingress. We have backup and manage certificates for all data center web servers. And the last description is forward network traffic based on a destination MAC address. Now, I also have 7 different devices or components. These 7 different devices are to be matched with those 4, which means there'll be 3 left over at the end, if I have done my math correctly. Those 7 different devices are a web filter, a switch, jump server, HSM, IPS, VPN, and router. There's a lot of different things happening there, right? There's quite a few in there. So there will be 3 of these left over at the end because this is a 1-to-1 match. If you think you know what the answer is, follow the link on your screen, go to professormesser.com/QA and lock in your answer. If you think they're already in the right order to be matched, you would simply submit A1, B2, C3, D4. You're done. They're not in that order though. They're a little bit more scrambled than that one. I made it a little bit more difficult than doing that. So match the device to the description. See how well you know these different devices. This might be a good one to refresh your memory on some of these abbreviations. Acronyms are always a challenge when you're working through the exam. And of course, I had to throw some acronyms into this mix as well. But of course, we need to be able to match these up and have all of these working together as well. So hopefully you're familiar with these topics, with the way that these devices are implemented. And again, this is an important thing on the exam because CompTIA wants you to know what an HSM is and an IPS and a VPN, for example. Those are abbreviations that are listed in this question. But notice the question is not asking, what does HSM stand for? What are the letters IPS associated with? What is VPN? What does the V stand for? What does the P stand for? What does the N stand for? They aren't asking that. And they will never really ask that on an exam. That is not at all what you would run into on the exam. So you want to understand, what does an HSM do? How does an IPS fit into the big picture of networking and security? How does a VPN deal with this particular question in this way? So you have to understand context to be able to answer this question. A lot of you have submitted your answers. I see you're busy putting them in now. This is one we're really working a little bit more on this, trying to really get those answers in. A number of you are submitting them right now. Let's step through each of these and see where I believe each one of them is to go. We will start with the first one at the top. Connect to one remote device to manage multiple servers. What device would you use for that? The options available, the best option available, given those 7 on the screen, is a jump server. That is exactly what jump servers are used for. You jump into that server from usually a remote site, often a very well controlled and secure system, probably multi-factor authentication to finally get connected. But once you connect to that server, you can jump from that device to other devices that may be on that local network. Very commonly used by people who are managing a remote site from a different location so that you can jump to the server and then jump around inside of that single place. That is indeed a jump server. Next on our list is block all known app vulnerabilities at the internet ingress. There's a lot going on there. Of course, you can block app vulnerabilities anywhere to make that happen. But given the 7 different options you had, an intrusion prevention system is exactly what that is referring to. An IPS is designed to look for known vulnerabilities. It usually has a large database of signatures where it's looking for a particular traffic pattern. And if it sees that traffic pattern, it says that is a vulnerability. We're going to block it. It's not going to get on the inside of your network. They will not be able to attack your server. They will not be able to exploit that vulnerability if indeed your device is susceptible to that vulnerability. That's one thing we don't often talk about is the IPS is blocking these known vulnerabilities, even if you've patched your systems. It could be that if the IPS let it through, nothing would ever come of that, but this protects you regardless. So you do not have to worry about it. You will figure out what those differences are as you step through all of these. Next on our list is backup and manage certificates for all data center web servers. And the only option available that really matched that one was an HSM. HSM was what we were looking for. A hardware security module. That's exactly what an HSM does. It is a single collection point where you can secure all of your certificates into one single place. That is exactly the answer we were looking for there. And it's a very useful tool. You'll see it in a lot of corporate and large environments. Usually it's in the data center, but there are certain HSMs that are designed for personal use. You may see some of those out there as well. If you're doing any type of cryptocurrency, for example, you may have an external hardware device that's used to securely store your cryptocurrency. It's really securely storing a certificate. And that's what that is. It's your personal HSM. Next on this list, last on this list, forward network traffic based on a destination MAC address. Forward network traffic based on a destination MAC would be a switch. That's exactly what a switch does. It examines the MAC address of an incoming frame. It looks at what the destination is for that frame. The destination is a MAC address. And then you've got a forward that occurs right there inside of the switch using that MAC address. So makes something very useful to have that there. Now, there were 3 options we did not choose. We did not choose web filter, we did not choose VPN, and we did not choose router. But if we had to create a description for each of those, we could do that. We could say that a web filter is used to filter traffic, usually based on a URL, but it could also be based on a category. I should have probably even added that to the line, or category. It's something very commonly we use, for example, on our networks to be able to send information to other devices, regardless of what the URL happens to be. So if you're visiting a site that has already been categorized as gambling, we don't have to have a specific URL. We already know that's a gambling site. We can restrict access to that site based on a very broad category. We also have, next on our list, a VPN. That's a virtual private network. Many of us are very familiar with VPNs. And if you've watched any other website videos on YouTube, then you're probably familiar with VPNs. They seem to market them for many different companies across the way. So a lot happening there. And then lastly, we have a router. Some of you were asking earlier, well, why was this destination MAC address, why was D listed as switch and not router? Well, because a router forwards network traffic based on a destination IP address, not a MAC address. That's the difference between a switch and a router, is where they are looking inside of that packet. In the case of a router, inside of that packet, in the case of a switch, inside of the frame, to be able to understand where is this going and how do I get it there. So pretty important to be able to break those through and have an understanding of where you would focus with these particular issues. So those are the answers that we were looking for. We have connect to one remote device to manage multiple servers is a jump server. Blocking all known app vulnerabilities at the internet ingress is an IPS. Backing up and managing certificates for all data center web servers is a hardware security module. We've got forward network traffic based on a destination MAC address. That's a switch. And then we've already seen that filtering traffic based on URL or based on a category of URLs is a web filter. Communicating over an encrypted tunnel, commonly done with a virtual private network. And forwarding network traffic based on a destination IP address is indeed a router. Well, like most things associated with our performance-based questions, this is sort of like taking 7 different multiple choice questions and sort of cramming them into one single question. My recommendation to you on the exam is to make sure that you have the time to answer these. You're going to have a lot of, these usually come up right at the beginning of the exam. There's usually a handful of performance-based questions, and you're going to have a lot of multiple choice questions to go through. So don't get hung up right at the beginning of the exam, because you may spend a big chunk of your time trying to work through these, forgetting that you have another 80 multiple choice questions to answer. My usual recommendation is just skip over them, make a note of what they're asking for, go past them, finish your multiple choice. You can always circle back and answer the questions near the end. That might be a good strategy for you as well. Different people have different strategies they use. That's the one I use. Also let you know that CompTIA has told us in their frequently asked questions that the performance-based questions could possibly, with certain questions, perhaps provide you with partial credit. So this is one where I would hope would qualify for partial credit, since it sort of fits into that mix. Partial credit is an important one to be able to work with, but we'll never know if you really get partial credit or not. They don't detail it in the exam afterwards on the exam documentation. So the exam results you get will not tell you, oh, we used partial credit here, we didn't use partial credit here. You'll just never know. So my recommendation to you is don't worry so much about how they score everything, because you will never be able to determine how they scored it anyway. Just answer every question correctly. The final results will work themselves out at the end regardless. So this is not an exam that is about you reverse engineering the scoring process. It's an exam where you need to know the content that is specifically listed in the Security Plus exam objectives. And if you do that, you're not going to have any problem with anything on the exam. Let's now jump to a multiple choice question. We've got another one here. This next multiple choice question that we have asks, a company is installing a new IPS and would like to ensure the network continues to operate if the IPS fails. Which of the following should be used for this requirement? Is it A, fail open, lag, 802.1x, active, or asymmetric? A lot of different networking terms in there to parse through. We got a few, on there. There we go. There's your link. If you'd like to answer this question, please go to professormesser.com/QA to lock in your question. As always, of course, please no answers in the chat room. Please no hints in the chat room. The question again asks, a company is installing a new IPS and would like to ensure the network continues to operate if the IPS fails. Which of the following should be used for this requirement? Fail open, lag, 802.1x, active, or asymmetric? This is something we should look at. Understanding how things fail is an important part of this exam. Understanding how things are connected together is an important part of this exam. As I've often told you, the security roles that we deal with in most environments, if you're working in IT security, then a lot of what you're going to be doing revolves around your knowledge of networking. And this is a really good example of that. We really need to understand when we're designing and implementing these security devices, features, products, that we are able to, of course, put these into the network in a way that creates redundancy and doesn't create downtime if there's a problem. So that would be something to really focus on. So let's see. A lot of people answer this one very quickly, which I never know. Do we really know it? Or is this one we all know? Or is this one we just don't know? We just guessed. We'll find out right now. The question asks, a company is installing a new IPS and would like to ensure the network continues to operate if the IPS fails. Which of the following should be used for this requirement? Fail open, lag, 802.1x, active, or asymmetric? Let's stop our poll and see how you did with this one. We have 82% of you that say the answer is fail open. We also have single digits from that perspective. 3 of you really tied for second place. I guess we could kind of say that all 4 of these are tied for second place. They're so close to each other. 5% for 802.1x, 5% for active, 5% for asymmetric, and 3% for lag. So this is a bit of an outdated concept, but there are still people that are implementing devices to be an IPS, whether that is a standalone IPS or they could be implementing a next generation firewall with IPS functionality included inside of it. And it's obviously a concern. If this is sitting in line, it's looking at all the traffic coming in, evaluating on whether that traffic should continue, and then sending it back out the other port. Then if that device fails, we could potentially bring the entire network to its knees. It would fail the entire network. We want to keep everything running. On most enterprise networks, we need 100% uptime or something as close to 100% uptime. And in the case of an IPS or something that has kind of what I technically call a Gazinda port and a Gazada port, we need something that can help us. If we lose power to that device, how do we keep the network up and running? And having it fail open is a term that we use to allow data to continue to flow even if that device itself has failed. So this is something that obviously will be bypassing the IPS if the IPS fails, but it also means that your network is still up and running. So it's a balancing act. Now, some companies want to completely shut down the network if the IPS fails because they feel that the IPS is a critical part of their security. So you get to make that decision when you are designing the network. Maybe downtime is fine if it keeps your network more secure. You have to be able to make that decision. Some companies have different ways that they implement the IPS. Some companies have different ways to be able to make things really appropriately transfer from a working state to a non-working state and back again. You've got a lot of things to work through there and understand. So hopefully that's given you a little bit of something. There's another term that's called fail closed, which means if you are to lose the IPS, stop sending traffic. So that's the other side of that particular coin. And it's one that you will need to make the decision when you're implementing this design on how this will perform if this device suddenly fails. You've got other options there to work through. So that makes sense. And I think that's a reason that 82% of you got that one absolutely right. Of course, you got that one absolutely right. That was the answer that we were looking for. If you're someone who is working towards understanding more about this particular challenge of keeping networks up and running, there are many different ways to make this work, many different ways to implement it. Designing networks is another entire arm of technology that you will probably eventually be part of. And it's something that, of course, you need to think about as you're putting these devices into your network to make them more secure. Let's go to another question. Next on this list, I've got this question. A security team is installing a NetFlow console. Which of the following would be provided by this new install? Oh, I didn't even go through those other answers, did I? Folks in the chat room calling me out. You're absolutely right to call me out. So I'm going to flip back real quick. Let's see if I can do this. Sure, I can. How bad could it be, right? Let's look at the answers that you had in this mix. Thank you for reminding me. I'm just trying to remember, why is this going so quickly? I need to talk more. We have on our list, asymmetric is a type of network design where traffic may come in one direction and go out a different direction. Now, even if you lose your IPS, though, that means one of those connections will not be working. So there's still downtime. So it doesn't work in that scenario to be able to provide redundancy, but it is a way that people will often put in multiple devices that are all working at the same time. There's a lot we can talk about regarding having all of those. So hopefully you are familiar with what those differences are. We'll have to see what you design when you finally put your network together. But asymmetric networking, although more difficult to engineer, gives you a lot more flexibility, especially if you're integrating an active-active config. Active networking, really I needed to fill in something there. There is no such thing as an active network necessarily. I guess there are ways you could design that into the mix, but that is not the answer we were looking for to keep the network up and running. 802.1x is an authentication protocol. Many people refer to this as network authentication. Network access control specifically. Port-based network access control is something that commonly uses the very common protocol 802.1x to be able to authenticate people to the network before they're able to send traffic to the network. You can see why that would be a great security tool. And then lag, as many people said, link aggregation is what that refers to. That is setting up multiple links between devices and aggregating all of that bandwidth. So imagine connecting a device, maybe connecting two switches together. You would connect them with a gigabit connection. But what if you needed more traffic? What if you needed more activity, maybe more bandwidth on there? Well, let's plug another connection in. Oh, wait, you can't do that between switches. It would create a loop. So instead, you bind those two interfaces together in what's called link aggregation or a lag connection. And now you've got 2 gigabits of throughput between the switches. Let's do another link. Now we got 3 gigabit in the lag. Now let's put another connection in. Now we have 4 in the lag. So we got a few choices there. You got a lot that you're working through. So hopefully that's given you some ideas of ways to work through network uptime and availability. And all of these technologies really do work together. But for this question, the one we were absolutely looking for was the fail open, and 82% of you got that one absolutely correct. Let's go back to that question I asked earlier. We kind of jumped into it a little bit quick, but here we go. We've got more here. A security team is installing a NetFlow console. Which of the following would be provided by this new installation? Would it be centralized management of mobile devices, protected access to remote site servers, consolidation of switch, router, and firewall logs, centralized authentication services, or application usage reporting? So you've got a few to choose from there. See if you are familiar with what that NetFlow console would provide to you. You can lock in your question by visiting the link on your screen, professormesser.com/QA, and lock in your answer. See if you know what this happens to be. Of course, as always, please no answers in the chat room. Please no hints in the chat room. We'll have to figure out what your options might be available, what you might be working on to make this work through it. Now, I have implemented a number of NetFlow consoles in my career. I used to work for a company that provided NetFlow consoles, so I had become a bit of an expert as a systems engineer for the design, implementation, and deployment of NetFlow. Just one of the many tools available for different organizations. Make sure you are familiar when you are looking at different options for NetFlow. I don't want to give too much away to be able to work through those and be able to work around all of those different pieces of this. There are some people were even talking in the chat room about the previous question regarding redundancy. If you do have specific questions regarding redundancy, how that would be implemented, what is active-active, what is active-passive, how does that fit into the whole scheme, you could, of course, ask that question or any question you would like to talk about in the after show. That's our second hour today. You could simply use that same link that is on your screen. Go to professormesser.com/QA, and you could submit that question for consideration in our second hour. Let's see how well you did with this one. A security team is installing a NetFlow console. Which of the following would be provided by this new installation? Would it be centralized management of mobile devices, protected access to remote site servers, consolidation of switched, router, and firewall logs, centralized authentication services, or application usage reporting? Let's close our poll and see how you did with this one. This one, we have 66% of you that said the answer was consolidation of switch, router, and firewall logs. 19% of you said application usage reporting. And then it's single digits. 7% said centralized authentication services. 5% said protected access to remote site servers. And then we have 3% that say centralized management of mobile devices. So you've got a lot of people, 66% of you, that said the answer was consolidation of switch, router, and firewall logs is your NetFlow console. Except it is not. That is not the answer we were looking for, because NetFlow is designed to sit on your network, usually integrated into a switch or a router, or it could be a standalone probe that you put on your network, and it is collecting information about the data that's passing by. You're getting a lot of details about what's going on with the network. You're understanding who's talking to who, how much traffic are they sending to each other, what type of communication is occurring between these different devices. So we're collecting a lot of interesting metrics about the data that's passing by. We're not necessarily collecting those packets, although you could. There is part of the NetFlow standard that allows you to turn on packet capture, at least on an unlimited basis. But NetFlow is giving you metadata. It's sort of rolling up the statistics for this network traffic and telling you about everything that's happening on the network. Usually it's sending all this information from the different probes you have out there to a central collector. So this collector is not receiving log files. It is receiving information about the network data. And if you were to pull up a NetFlow console, you'd see something like this that showed the top 10 conversations, the top 10 endpoints, a breakdown of the different applications that are in use, the different conversations on the network, along with reporting of alarms and alerts. I think I have an application one for us to look at. There it is, top 5 applications. This is all gathered really looking at, NetFlow really focuses on port numbers. So really this is a summary of the different port numbers that are being used on this. So maybe that's given you some idea of what you would work through to have this here. The top 5 applications is a very good example of a net flow report, one that you'll find in most net flow front ends to be able to see this. But the way that we got this data is from the packets themselves, not from log files. Log files can be consolidated and reports can be created from those, but log files are a very high level bit of information. Log files don't tell you a lot about what's there. So let's see if we can really focus on understanding more about what really would be the important part of this. So hopefully we're for understanding a little more about technologies and where we would focus. NetFlow is an important one to know about, not only because you're probably going to run into a NetFlow console somewhere, but you're also certainly going to run across this type of network information gathering tool. See if that's something you are figuring out as you work through the details of this. So that is why, in this case, it would not be the 66% of you that chose consolidation of switch router and firewall logs. That would be a security information and event manager, or a SIM. So if you're using a SIM, that is receiving log information. If you're using NetFlow, you're receiving specific NetFlow data that has been gathered and compiled based on actual network packets. So that is why the 19% of you that chose application usage reporting got this one absolutely correct. 7% of you said centralized authentication services. That would probably be a Radius server, a Kerberos server, an LDAP server, or one of the many different types of authentication services. It would not be NetFlow. NetFlow does not provide any authentication services. We have 5% of you that said protected access to remote site servers. That seems like it would be more of a jump server or a VPN. Certainly would not be NetFlow. NetFlow does not protect access to remote site servers. And then lastly, a centralized management of mobile devices. That would be a mobile device manager or an MDM. It would not be a NetFlow console. In this case, 19% was the winner here. We were looking at application usage reporting as being the output from a NetFlow console. And that is exactly the answer that we were looking for. As you can already tell in this exam, there's a lot of information. There's information about encryption. There's information about policies and procedures. There's information about NetFlow, SIMs, and other gathering devices. One of the ways that I tell people to study for this is to, of course, get the exam objectives, get a good book, get some good labs and some good Q&A. And of course, it's good to have a summary of all of this information that you can reference afterwards. To be able to provide this, because if you look at all of my Security Plus videos, 121 videos are in the Security Plus course. It's a lot of videos, and it's over 15 hours of detailed information. So I've taken everything from these videos, and I put them into a single document. This is the VPN, or the PDF version of this is on the screen. Then I have a version that's here that is printed out. It's exactly the same information in the physical edition as it is in the digital edition that we see online. But you can see as we step through this, these are all of the text, all of the important charts, all of the important graphics. They are in these course notes. So if you're studying for your Security Plus exam, you might want to have everything in one single place. And you may want to use this to be able to follow along. They're in the same structure, the same format, and the same process as the videos in our course. So you can follow along with your course notes as you're going through all of these videos. All of this is available in my Security Plus course notes. And as I've already mentioned, we have both digital editions and physical editions. We will print these out on demand and ship them to you if you want the physical printed book version. If you get the physical version, I will obviously be sending this to you in the mail, but you will get access to the digital PDF version at no additional cost. You can download that immediately and start reading through it while you're waiting on your printed book to arrive. That's all available on my site. Go to ProfessorMesser.com/701CN. Not only what I think is a great way to have all of this study material in one consolidated place, but it's also a great way to support what we do here. And you're helping us create more videos and have more courses available in the future. Thank you so much for your ongoing support. Let's do another question. We've got more here. Next on our list is this one that asks, A contractor has been given a SAL or SOW for the following week. What framework was most likely in place prior to receiving this SOW? Would it be NDA, MOU, MOA, BPA, or MSA? Well, these are the types of questions that you could expect on an actual exam because they give you nothing about what those things are. This is why I mentioned to you, you could spend time trying to memorize what all of these different letters refer to, but if you don't know how to use these technologies, you're not able to answer these particular kinds of questions. So see if you know the answer to this one. The question again asks, a contractor has been given an SOW for the following week. What framework was most likely in place prior to receiving this SOW? Is it NDA, MOU, MOA, BPA, or MSA? You think you know the answer? Go to professormesser.com/QA and lock in your answer. See if you know which one of these it's associated with. We'll have to see which one it might be. Go ahead and look through the answers that you have available here and see if you know. I know it's a lot of acronyms. There's a lot here you have to know. We do a very good job with the acronyms in our business, don't we? Now, Security Plus has a lot of acronyms. I haven't counted them. If you look at the back of the exam objectives, Security Plus does have more acronyms in the exam objectives that are listed, but I almost want to say that Network Plus has more. I feel like for some reason, the networking side tends to do a lot more with acronyms than the Security Plus side, but I might be wrong with that one. I have a lot there that I would have to deal with. So see if this is one that you are familiar with and answer. A lot of you already got your answers in. Let's see how you did. The question again asks, a contractor has been given I should have said an SOW or a SAL, I guess it depends on how you say it, for the following week. What framework was most likely in place prior to receiving this SOW, the SAL? We often just call it a SAL whenever we're dealing with this. I have been in positions where I provided professional services work before, and I have been given a SAL to use with those professional services. And that is why, as we look at the answers here, let's see what you chose. We'll consider this, and we can see that we have no idea. This one has the most interesting distribution, which means none of us really knew what this answer was for this. This will be a good opportunity for most of us then, won't it? We do have a plurality of you chose 34% MSA. So if we had to go with which one got the most number of votes, that would be it. And then we have kind of a smattering of 17, 18, and 19% are MOA, NDA, and MOU. I'm going to have to remember all these acronyms myself. And then with 12%, we have BPA. There is an article, or I should say a video that we did that has a lot of different standard agreement types in it. I would recommend you look through that video, section 5.3 for agreement types, to be able to learn more about this one. See if this is something that makes sense for you if you're working through this. MSA is a master service agreement. A master service agreement. Master service agreements are a way that you could set up sort of an overriding, very broad contract that describes how we're going to do things in the future. So this would be a way, especially if you have, maybe you have 20 remote sites that you manage, and you have contracted with a single company to go to all 20 of those remote sites and perform different professional services. Maybe they're installing a router here, they're upgrading some switch software here, you're swapping out the jump server at another one. So there's a lot of different things this company will be doing for you. So you may, for each one of those remote sites, have a completely different statement of work, SOW, statement of work. Sometimes you'll hear this referred to as a work order. But the statement of work is your bullet by bullet breakdown of what you're going to do at that remote site. But who determines how much you're getting paid? What are the expectations for your access to the network? What are the different working hours that you will be expected to work at these locations. Those are terms that are much broader. Those are terms that apply to all of those remote sites. So instead of repeating yourself in every single one of these these statement of work, instead of having to renegotiate those specific terms in every statement of work, why not have an overriding contract called a master service agreement that lays out expectations, response times, the cost, or any of these other things. And then for each of the individual sites, we will have very specific statements of work to determine what you will be doing at that location. So in this case, when you have been given a statement of work, the framework that was already in place, that the statement of work was built on, is going to be your master service agreement. 34% of you were absolutely correct. That is what we were looking for. So if you are someone working today or you're looking to work in professional services, you will be using master service agreements and you will be using statements of work quite a bit. So you have certainly a lot to choose from there. We have other answers that you chose in this list. A business partnership agreement is when two companies are going to partner with each other. You don't usually partner with a contractor that's coming in for the statement of work because they already work for you. You don't need a statement of work. You're a partner of ours. You're effectively the same company, your family at that point. You've joined the group as a partner. A business partnership agreement is not related to a statement of work. We have a non-disclosure agreement. Non-disclosure agreements are great for working through and understanding what you're able to say, what you're able to mention. It's effectively a confidentiality agreement that you can have between different organizations. We also have other agreement types in this list. I would highly recommend you look through all of them that are in our section 5.3 agreement types video so that you can use a memorandum of understanding, and there's many other types in here as well. You need to go through and understand what those real differences are between each one of those. I think that might help you quite a bit as you are going through and understanding where you should go with the different business side of IT. This is something that you may only work with kind of at the edge as you're getting into IT. So for instance, you could be working in this contractor's organization and they're going to hand you the statement of work and say, go do this. And then you go and you work on that. But behind the scenes, there was an entire master service agreement the entire organization worked on, but you weren't involved with that. You didn't set the terms for that. That wasn't part of your job role. So of course you wouldn't be in those meetings, but there was a lot of work that went on before you were handed that statement of work. As you move up the ranks, maybe you get into a director role, maybe you get into a vice president role, maybe you're in the role where you're dealing with these contracts. You may be in those initial meetings where you are creating that overriding type of contract between you and the management company or the contracting company. So you may be creating all of those different master service agreements and then building out the statement of works on top of those. Just depends on where you fit into the big scheme of things as far as security and management is concerned of your organization. We have time for another question. Let's do another question. Next on our list, by the way, I've also worked, as I mentioned, with a lot of companies working with professional services. So I have been the person going through the statement of work. They're usually very detailed. There's a bullet by bullet breakdown. You will do this, and you will do this, and you will do this, and you will do this. And if you do all of those things, we will say that you have completed that task. And very often when you are on site and you are working through these processes, you have to stick to the statement of work. Anytime someone tries to add anything extra, well, since you're here, could you also look? I can't. If it's in the statement of work, I absolutely can look at that. If it's not in the statement of work, then we will need to revise the statement of work and you'll probably need to pay a little bit more money. So there's always a trade-off, isn't there, when you're working through those? Let's do another question, shall we? Next on our list is this question, where it asks, this is one you should get, by the way. I like to put these intentional references in. We're going to see how well we remember things. A company stores all of their web server SSL private keys in a protected repository. Which of the following would best describe this storage technology? Is it HSM, NAS, Certificate Authority, TPM, or Secure Enclave? There's a lot of security stuff there on that one slide, isn't it? There's a lot there. A company stores all of their web server SSL private keys in a protected repository. Which of the following would best describe this storage technology? Is it HSM, NAS or NAS, Certificate Authority, TPM, or Secure Enclave? We should really get 100% on this, right? We bounce back on this one. And I think this may answer a number of questions that folks might have had earlier in this live stream. Let's see how well you do, what you do with this one. I think I'm crossing my fingers. We're going to do really, really, really well with this one. I think we will be. This should be a good one. Submit your question anytime using that link at the bottom of the screen. Go to professormesser.com/QA to submit your answer. See how you do with this one. There's a lot of technology just in this single question. I'm going to have to really step through each one of these answers and kind of break out how we would use these on an enterprise network. A lot of my background is in cybersecurity, next generation firewalls, implementing technology surrounding the next generation firewalls, integration into Active Directory, IPsec connections, SSL VPN connectivity, cloud-based antivirus and anti-malware detection. That's where I really focus. So this particular question right in my alley, right in my wheelhouse to figure out the details of this. Let's see how you did with this one. A company stores all of their web server SSL private keys in a protected repository. Which of the following would best describe this storage technology? Is it HSM, NAS, Certificate Authority, TPM, or Secure Enclave? And let's see how you did. We'll click our button here at the bottom, and not 100%, but 58% of you say the answer is HSM. 22% of you say the answer is a Secure Enclave. We also have, if you started to get into the details of this, 9% rather said Certificate Authority, 7% said TPM, and 4% said a NAS. So we've got a few to work on as we are working through this. We have 58% of you, though, that said HSM is the answer. Not only a plurality of you, but the majority of you have chosen that answer. And that's because that's the answer we were looking for, hardware security module. This is very commonly used in the data center. Imagine having 200 web servers that are running in your data center. Each one of those web servers might have a different SSL certificate on it. And I know I'm saying SSL here. For those of you that are working in this world, you know that when we say the words SSL, we are really referring to the next generation of encryption on our web servers. So TLS is really what is happening there. But we very commonly in this industry still refer to it as SSL. Probably because SSL is easier to say than TLS. There's a lot more work that has to go into saying those particular letters. So I think that may be the big reason we did this. This is where you can store, you've got 200 servers. Where are you going to store all of these, in many cases, private keys that are used on those web servers? They need to be somewhere protected. They need to be somewhere accessible. They need to be somewhere that can be redundant if you have a particular HSM goes down. That can be a bit of a challenge. So you might want to have all of your keys backed up here. These can also have technology, hardware inside of these devices that could even potentially act as an encryption or decryption accelerator so that it can provide the encryption and decryption instead of pushing it off into the web server. These days, I think most of our web servers and really the underlying web technologies we are using are very good at encrypting and decrypting SSL. So not something we commonly use an accelerator with, but there might still be a reason to have that there. There's a lot of different ways to engineer in the enterprise, and this gives you that option in any case. So hardware security module is where you would store all of those important protected private keys from your web server. And indeed, 58% of you said, yep, that's what I would have chosen as well. The TPM, the Trusted Platform Module, or excuse me, the hardware security module and not the Trusted Platform Module. I wanted to start talking about the Trusted Platform Module because I think most people have this comparison of the two. because a trusted platform module is usually a component that is on the motherboard of a laptop or desktop computer. And it's really designed for a user to be able to store protected cryptography components. For example, if you use full disk encryption on your device, you need somewhere to store all of that full disk encryption certificate information. And on a single device, it is usually stored in the TPM. And on a web server, on hundreds of web servers across a large group, you're not storing all of your SSL private keys in a TPM, you're storing them in an HSM. So make sure you're familiar with the TPM, which provides cryptographic services at an individual device level, and an HSM that provides cryptographic services across a very broad level. Become very familiar with those two, and I think you'll be fine. We also have NAS on this list. 4% of you said a network attached storage. That is just a generic place to store data. It provides no additional security. It provides no additional cryptographic functions. That is not your best choice for storing SSL private keys. We have 9% of you said certificate authority. The certificate authority is there to provide signatures, a digital signature for your SSL private keys, your SSL certificates specifically. But certificate authority is not where you store the keys. That's not where you keep them. That is simply there to effectively sign off on the keys that are provided, then they give the key back. So we don't store them on the CA. And then lastly, we have a secure enclave. That is a technology term that was commonly associated with mobile devices. So on your mobile phone and other devices these days, you have a chipset on that device that provides additional cryptographic capabilities, not only for the keys that you need to be able to do full disk encryption, but other functions as well. Secure Enclave you commonly associate with mobile devices, and in any case, you wouldn't store an SSL private key in the Secure Enclave anyway. The best answer here, the one that makes the most sense, and the one that is the right answer, is our hardware security module, our HSM, and 58% of you got that one absolutely correct. If you're watching this video for continuing education unit credit, I would love to send you an email that certifies that you were here for 1 hour of a webinar. So it's a webinar category CEU. The way that you would earn that CEU is you must follow these instructions. If you do not follow these instructions, you will not earn a CEU. It's part of the authorization authentication process is you following these steps. First, go to professormesser.com. At the top or the bottom of the website is a link to contact us. This will bring up a form. In that form, put your name, your email address. In the subject line, please put June 2025 Security Plus. And in the body of the message on a line by itself, put the super secret code words of the month, HSM Certificate Authority. Those are the keywords you need to put into the body of the message on a line by itself. And then if you want to add any other information into that message, you're more than welcome to. I'd love to hear about where you are with your certification studies. If you've already got your Security Plus, if you're working towards renewing it, those are interesting things for me to read about as well. I do read through every single one of these. I'm not able to respond back individually because we get hundreds of these in a month, but I do enjoy reading through them because I do have to go through them all manually to confirm that everything was done properly and then send you back your email. It usually takes me about a week to return these, and you could submit these whether you're watching here live and online or whether you're watching this on a replay. You could be watching it 6 months from now, and it would still be valid. You can still send me the email, and I will still send you the response back as long as you follow the instructions, which were to go to the top or the bottom of the Professor Messer website, click the Contact Us link, put in your name, your email address, in the subject line, put June 2025 Security Plus, or something close to it. In the body of the message on a line by itself, put the super secret code words of the month, HSM Security Authority, or Certificate Authority. And I think those will be everything you need to know to be able to get the information you need to be able to answer this particular question. Well, I know we're kind of at the top of the hour, but I want to give you one more question at least. I want to get more of this here and available to you. But before we do that, let me first explain where this question is coming from, because this next question is not going to be a question that you have seen in a previous study group, because it is coming from my practice exams book. This has come up recently. A lot of people have been asking about this, and I really do appreciate all the interest in it. One of the ways that I came up with this idea of creating practice exams, obviously not a huge dramatic shift in the industry. There are a lot of practice exams that you can find out there. But one of the things that I found when I started looking at them is a lot of the practice exams either are not specific to the latest exam version. They'll ask you from topics that are no longer covered on the exam, so they're out of date. I also found a lot of practice exams that were very convoluted in the way they asked the questions, which is not the way the exam is. The exam has some very specific styles and tones that it uses during the exam process to make it feel like a CompTIA exam. And a lot of the questions in the exams I found online weren't even close to the same style as the actual exam. And perhaps worst is that the practice questions that I found online, a lot of them were just wrong. They were incorrect, or I have a feeling it was written by people that maybe had not done this for a living, so they didn't really understand the context of what they were asking. In any case, I thought there needs to be a better group of questions, and that's how I created my practice exams book. This is a set of 3 separate practice exams that include both performance-based questions and multiple choice-based questions in one single book. In fact, why don't we take a question now that I have created. This is from my practice exams book, and this is, I think, a pretty good one. Here's a question. Again, please no answers in the chat room. Please no hints in the chat room. Just in your mind, quietly to yourself, choose what you think the right answer is. So here's our question. This is from my 3rd exam in this book, the exam C, question 11, and it asks, the IT department of a transportation company maintains an on-site inventory of chassis-based network switch interface cards. If a failure occurs, the on-site technician can replace the interface card and have the system running again in 60 minutes. Which of the following best describes this recovery metric? Is this MTBF, MTTR, RPO, or RTO? You can see you've got 4 answers to choose from there. Now, this is a PDF, so you can read through and scroll through this PDF. If you want the answer to the question, and by the way, you've got ways that you can even, because this is a PDF, you can highlight different things. Maybe you can choose different answers that you think it might be. You can annotate this however you would like. Nothing is locked down in this PDF. So if you've got a stylus, you can write on the screen. You can store that as part of the PDF and have it there as well. If you want the answer, if you just want to know if it's A, B, C, or D, you can go to page 289. Right now I'm on page 262. Well, what do? Just scroll to page 289. Nobody likes doing that. Or if you want a more detailed answer, you go to page 302. So instead of scrolling through your PDF, I just added a link into every single question. So instead of scrolling to page 302, we're just going to click 302 and it goes to that page. If we look at the bottom, you can see it has 302 right there, right at the bottom. So it gives you the question again, and it says the answer is B, MTTR. And one of the things you'll notice in all of the answer pages of my book, whenever there is an abbreviation, an acronym, I write out what the acronym means to help solidify that in your brain. So MTTR is the mean time to restore. It's the amount of time required to get back up and running. This is sometimes called mean time to repair. So that is the answer that we were looking for. Another thing I found with the questions online is I would often get the answer wrong, but it didn't tell me why was the answer wrong. That was an opportunity to teach me something, and they missed out on that opportunity. You're not going to miss that opportunity in this book because I list out every incorrect answer, and for every incorrect answer, I tell you why it is an incorrect answer. In many ways, this is like getting 4 different topics in every single practice exam question. And if you read this question and you're thinking, I don't know what any of these things are. I don't know what an MTBF is. I don't know what an MTTR is. I don't know what an RPO is. I don't know what an RTO is. At the bottom of this list is more information. This question was created from my video in the SY0-701 course, Objective 5.2, and the video name is Business Impact Analysis, and you can use the QR code or the built-in link to go to the video to watch the video that explains the information that's contained within this question. This is all part of my practice exam book. We have this also, once we're done with this question, we can hit the back button that is in your PDF reader. You may not even realize your PDF reader has a back button. We're going to click that button, and now we're back to where we started, and we can go to the next question that's in our list. That is my practice exams book. That's something that I'm hoping you might find useful. If it is, then you can get both the practice exams book and the course notes on my website. Go to professormesser.com/securitype. If you get both of those, there is a discount associated with that, so you might be able to save a few bucks anyway by combining them together into a combo. And of course, both of those are also included in my success bundle, just bundled along with everything else. Find out more at my website, professormesser.com/securitype. One of the things you've noticed already is that all of the topics we went through today come directly from the CompTIA exam objectives. These objectives tell you everything you need to know to pass this exam. It is a bullet by bullet, topic by topic breakdown of every single thing that could possibly be covered on this exam. And CompTIA sticks to this list nearly 100%, like glue, like bears and honey. They are on this list, which means if you know every single one of these topics, you are going to easily pass your Security Plus exam. This is a very valuable document. You should absolutely get your hands on this. It is available on the CompTIA website for free. It is a little bit different structure. CompTIA changed their website a couple of weeks ago, so there's no single page to go to for the objectives, but now the objectives are available to download from the objective page associated with the certification itself, and you don't have to put in any additional registration details. You just click on that and you're good. You've got everything you need. It's on the CompTIA website, and it's a valuable tool. Make sure you use this set of objectives and read through it before you start your studies. This is also a valuable tool to use to determine if you're ready to take your exam. It's all here at the exam objectives. Go to professormesser.com/objectives for more information. We do one of these study groups every month, and I've already scheduled our July study groups. We have A Plus on July 8th and 10th, a Network Plus study group on the 16th, and a Security Plus study group. Our next one is on July 23rd. If you're ever wondering when our next live event might be, maybe you're watching this and it's 6 months later, you can always go to professormesser.com/calendar and know exactly when the next live event will be. If I ever make changes to this schedule, and sometimes I do, I always update the calendar first. So you will always have the latest information by going to professormesser.com/calendar. Well, we've gone through an hour of Q&A, but there's more coming. Stay right where you are. Right when we're done, we'll stop for about 5 seconds, and then we're into our after show where I will answer your questions that you can submit at any time from professormesser.com/QA. Don't forget that we are on your favorite social media sites. You go to professormesser.com/X/Discord/Facebook/YouTube/LinkedIn, whatever it happens to be, and you can find us and all of the things that we are doing here at Messer Studios. Of course, we have our discounted vouchers. They're available if you're in the U.S., Canada, or a U.S. territory. You can find it at professormesser.com/vouchers. And of course, we have our course notes, our practice exams, and so much more on our website at professormesser.com/701SB. That is our 701 Success Bundle. Well, that brings us to the end of the first half of our study group today. There's much more to come. Stick around for our after show. Thank you so much for joining us in this first hour. We will see you next time on the Security Plus study group. Okay, we got a few questions that have come in already. Will I be streaming on Twitch? Let's hope not. Let's hope that I am not streaming on Twitch. Nobody wants to see me play video games badly. Because the people on Twitch play video games very well. I would be the different Twitch. Is there a Twitch for people that don't play video games well? I'm all in. That's me. That would be the Call of Duty person that is dead on the floor. That's me. That's when, if anybody wants to up their rankings, just invite me, because that will get you there. You'll have someone you can easily use and abuse to get up higher in your rankings for sure. So no, we will not be doing any streams on Twitch. Now, of course, Twitch does have non-gaming streams, but YouTube does a very good job at providing our streaming. So it's one of those things where I think that might help you as well to stick to YouTube. And I think I'm going to stick to YouTube as well for the time being. If you can give me a compelling reason why it might be useful, we'll go through that process and deal with those there. So in our after show here, probably get rid of more pictures of me than we need to see. Our after show is designed to give you a chance to ask some questions of me. I've been talking this whole time about things. Now it's your time to ask questions of the things that we are doing. And let's see if I can change these different things that are on my screen. I need to hide and show and look at different things. Here we go. Now you are able to go out and have a look at this. If you go to professormesser.com/QA, you will see that you can submit questions for the second hour of the study group at any time. We will be moderating questions during the session. Your contribution may not appear immediately. In fact, it will not appear immediately because I will be looking through these questions as we go through this list today. Simply follow the link on your screen. Go to professormesser.com/QA to submit your question. And I'm going to go through these questions here live and online. I'm going to scroll through them and work through the details of this. A lot of the questions that we have are questions about understanding technology. Maybe they're about getting a job in IT. Maybe they're about certifications, or maybe they're just any other topic. You're welcome to ask whatever you would like and be able to work through them. So see if you are familiar with these. I think there's a lot to pour through. And we have a great question that was submitted by Ricardo, who asks, I have successfully secured my first entry-level help desk technician role. First, let me stop right there and congratulate Ricardo on that very first entry-level role in IT. As I've mentioned on other study groups, it is incredibly important to get your foot in the door if you are at all hoping to move up the ranks within IT. Getting that first job is a huge deal. It's an enormous deal. You should absolutely take advantage of this. Ricardo continues, do I skip the A+ and do the Network Plus? Well, that's a fine question. There's so much wrapped into that question, though. There's so many things dealing with this. First, you've got the first job. So congratulations to that. But that doesn't necessarily mean that you have all of the knowledge you need to be able to do that job well. There have been many times when I have been in a position as a systems engineer, as a systems analyst, as a network manager, or whatever it was, and I knew enough to get the job, but I did not know everything I really needed to know to be competent at that job, which, by the way, perfectly normal within the world of IT. There will never be a time in IT where you are not studying for something, where you're not learning about some technology, because there's so many different technologies that we need to learn, and there's no way you're ever going to know all of them. You will never learn everything you need to know. That is an international truth. That is a universal truth when it comes to IT. So the question then becomes, how much of the A+ have you learned in that first role? And how much of the A+ have you not learned in that first role? There may be things that can help you quite a bit by going through the A+ and learning all that information. Now, maybe you don't even, and this is an option, maybe you go through all of the A+ materials, but you simply don't get the certification. There are people on my website that do that all the time. They're just there to learn the content, not because they need the cert, but they just want to know more about how this technology operates. So absolutely, that is useful and important and being able to use there. So that is a consideration, but you also have to think about where you want to go. Maybe in the help desk, you want to move out of the help desk in the next 6 months, in the next 9 months, in the next 12 months. What is that next jump going to be? In your organization, there might be some openings on the network team. Maybe you're interested in Linux. Maybe you want to learn more about the cloud. Maybe you have a real strong interest in security. That may determine where you go next. And you'll probably want to have conversations with the people that are in the networking group, that are in the cloud computing group, that are in the Linux group, to find out more about Are they hiring people right out of the help desk? That's an important consideration. The security team might not be. So you might not want to look at security first because they may not be hiring people until they have a strong understanding of operating systems and networking, which is where most people are hired that get into the security world. Very rarely are we hiring people that at an entry level position in IT to work in anything related to IT security. You need a strong foundation to be able to work in IT security, generally strong foundation in operating systems, and a strong foundation in networking. So your first position out of the help desk is probably going to be operating system, cloud, networking, or something around that would be a true entry-level technology position that you can then grow with. So that would be, I think, a good conversation with the folks that are there, that are in your organization, to find out what your options might be. Because most companies know that you are going to rotate out of the help desk after a number of months. If you've been in the help desk for more than a year, it's time to start thinking about maybe moving to a different role. You should move out of that and keep moving up within the industry as much as you can. It's just a normal part of what we do. So that's my recommendation. I don't recommend skipping anything, but I do recommend finding the certifications that make sense for what your employer and what you want to be able to do in the future. And somewhere, I will bet there's a happy medium there somewhere. Hopefully that's given you some things to think about and work through. And again, congratulations on that first help desk job. That's great news. Let's go to another question. We've got other things that are in here. The ones that I do have available, we're going to get some into the list we have. A lot of great questions are coming in on this. And as I mentioned earlier, you can always submit a question that you would like us to consider at professormesser.com/QA. A lot of these we were able to talk about and go through in the middle of all of our conversations with these questions. So if I skipped over some of the questions that you submitted regarding a previous question we did in the study group, that's because we probably have already covered those particular topics. Let's have a look. Here's a question that's really more of a logistics and sort of a planning for your certification. This is from Jessica, who asks, "Hi, Professor. This question is actually related to the A+. When purchasing the A+ voucher on your website, does that include both Core 1 and Core 2? These are important things to know if you're planning to purchase a voucher. So the best way to answer this one, I think, will be to go to professormesser.com. And before the Google ad pops up, I'm going to click the vouchers option. There's our ad. And here is the next page that talks about the vouchers. So here's the vouchers page. I'm going to get rid of our link here at the bottom so we can have a look at it. And let's choose the A+ voucher, since we know that's the one that we are going to focus on with this particular question. I tried to give as much scope to this on the page so that you will know what you're getting. The first thing you should keep in mind is one voucher is good for one exam. That's it. If you plan to take two exams, Core 1 and Core 2, two different exam versions, then you need to have two different vouchers. You need two of them. You need one voucher for Core 1, one voucher for Core 2. Now, you have the option, as I mentioned earlier, you have the option to have a retake option on these vouchers now. So you can either take a voucher, you go in, you pass or fail, that's it. That's the result of that particular exam sitting. And if you need to take the exam again, you would have to go buy another voucher. If you get a voucher with retake assurance, that's the term that CompTIA uses for these, retake assurance, it's an extra $49. But if you go in and take your Core 1 exam and you fail, you can take your Core 1 exam again using the same voucher code. You don't have to pay for another voucher because these vouchers are $239 USD. On the discounted price, $265 if it's not discounted. So these are expensive vouchers. Think of the retake assurance as just some insurance. That retake assurance is a $49 insurance policy. So that does not mean, however, that you could get a retake voucher that is an A+ voucher with retake assurance. You pass your Core 1 exam, I'll use the retake to take the Core 2 exam. Nope. Doesn't work that way. That would be so good, wouldn't it? That's why it doesn't work that way. You have to buy 2 separate vouchers, one for Core 1, one for Core 2. So at a minimum, you need one $239 voucher for Core 1 and another $239 voucher for Core 2. If you'd like to add retake assurances to that, you can, of course, do that for each of those. And as I put on this page, each one of these is applicable towards any available A+ exam. So any voucher, if the voucher says A+, you can apply it towards any A+ exam. There's no such thing as an 1101 voucher or a 1201 voucher or a 1202 voucher. If it says A+, it's good for A+. Bottom line, which makes it so much easier to keep track of. Now, if you scroll down in this list, I know it's sort of boring, but there are terms and conditions here that explain a lot of this. So if you're trying to figure out, wait, the retake thing, how does that work? There's a breakdown here of voucher terms and conditions and retakes. And it says, for voucher purchases that include a retake, if you fail the exam on your first attempt, use the same voucher to register and retake the exam. All vouchers, including retakes, expire 12 months from the date of purchase. The retake is only valid for the same exam version that you failed. You cannot use the retake for a different version of the exam. So hopefully that makes things a little bit clearer when you're looking for a voucher. So thank you also, Jessica, for your interest in that. Those vouchers are a great way to support the things that we do here, helps keep the website up and running, along with the other study materials that we create specifically for you. I don't think there's anywhere else in the internet where you can get materials with this level of quality. We've designed them to be the best study materials you can get your hands on. So we wouldn't publish it if it wasn't that way. So hopefully those vouchers can also help you as you go through your studies. Thank you for the question. Let's get more questions that you have submitted. We have a lot here to work through. On this list, this is a pretty good one. Let's go back to one of the questions we asked earlier that was about you're a contractor. You've been given a statement of work to walk in and work on someone's network. So Sarwat asks, I got the answer right because the answer was I was asking what needed to be in place before the statement of work was created. And there was a master service agreement, an MSA, that was created for this. This continues, though, by saying, wouldn't the company have a contractor sign an NDA first in case of any intellectual property? Well, a smart company might, but I have been in many cases where I have walked in as a contractor and I signed no non-disclosure agreement. So as much as you would hope that someone would have asked me to, and I would have gladly signed it, that is not what happened in that particular case. So it's not a requirement, and in many cases is not used for whatever reason. Now, there are some cases where I have done a firewall replacement, a migration of one manufacturer's firewall to a different manufacturer's firewall. All the rules have to be rewritten. All of the configurations for the network are redesigned. I had access to all of their network data. I had access to detailed information about their organization. Did not ask me to sign an NDA. So it does not always happen that way. It should. They should have asked me to sign an NDA. They have not. One of the things I think a lot of companies don't realize is when you walk into a new company, you walk into a building as a security engineer, a security professional, you're looking at everything. You're looking at the locks they have on their doors. You're looking at the sign-in process that you have to go through. There have been many places where I've walked in. It was a federal organization that required that I put down my name and my social security number. And I even asked them as I was signing in, like, why do you need my social security number? And by the way, I see everyone's name and I see all of their social security numbers on the sheet of paper they're having me fill out. So I naturally asked, why do I need to give you a social security number? Because that's like giving someone the keys to your bank account. It's like handing over access to your digital world when you're handing out that kind of information. And they said, well, I don't know. It's just required. You just have to do it to come in. Like, oh, okay. How do you verify the social security number? They go, well, we don't have a way to verify it. Oh, is that so? Well, here's a number that's very similar to what would look like a social security number that is mine. There you go. Thanks so much. I will not confirm or deny that I provided them with my actual social security number, but I will tell you that I feel very confident in the security of that social security number. So it's just one of those things that you're constantly looking at how security is being done in these places. Do they ask you to sign an NDA? Do they just let you into the data center without any type of sign-in process to know that you were even there? That's a pretty interesting place to be. So you want to be very careful when people from outside the organization are coming into the organization. You don't know what type of data that they are accessing all the time. You don't know what they're doing with that data once they access it, and you don't know what they're doing when they walk out of the building. A lot of other places I've walked into have had me hand over my phone when I walked in the door. I could not get into the building unless I gave up my phone, either handed it off to the reception or put it back into my car, and brought me in. Anywhere I went in the building, somebody had to be with me, even in the bathroom. Not in the stall, but had to be in the room with me. And, oh yeah, go to the restroom. Okay, I'll be here washing my hands. You do whatever you're doing, and then we'll leave. Yep. Well, then they followed everywhere I went. Somebody was with me. I was never left alone. That's a very secure environment. There have been other environments where they just open the door of the data center and say, it's down there. There you go. And just let me walk into the data center. And I, as a security professional, I'm thinking, this is a bad idea, not just for the customer. It's kind of a bad idea for me to be in that position as well. If something goes wrong on this network and I'm in this room by myself, a lot of questions are going to get asked, a lot of questions. So these are things you also have to worry about for yourself as well as you step through these. But it's another one of those things that becomes important to consider. So in this case, you don't need an NDA to perform any type of professional services on a network, but you should. You should be signing one. So you're absolutely right to ask that question, and absolutely right to think, wait a second, why didn't you sign an NDA? I like where you're thinking. I like where you're going with that. Other questions. Let's keep going through this list. These are interesting questions and things to think about. And things we should always be considering when we talk about this. This is from Freddie. What's up, Freddie? He says, good day, Professor. I'm curious, can you speak on the environmental impacts of AI technology? In fact, I'll talk about environmental impacts just of technology in general. AI, just a part of the overall view of things. Is it true that AI data centers use an egregious amount of water? Say, are the AIs, are they very thirsty? They must be. Should we feel guilty when using AI tools for that reason? Not for that reason. Thanks again for your insights. So a fine question, and one we should always be considering when we're using any type of technology, is what effect this has on natural resources. Resources that are finite, resources that we can easily eat through. This was a big one, probably more so when with cyber or cryptocurrency. I think it's probably where you hear this the most, but I think it applies to any data center. And one of the things you'll notice, for example, is that a lot of data centers these days have become relatively self-sufficient with their power. A lot more data centers have implemented solar type of power that they supplement with the data center. A lot of data centers are using different types of cooling systems now that are much more efficient. They're keeping the temperature maybe a little bit higher so that it's not quite as cold in the data center, because it really doesn't need to be. These days, our equipment runs very well at normal room temperatures. And the comment was made here about water. Data centers use a lot of water, and primarily for cooling is what we'd use them for. We're not talking about the systems you use at home, although the same thing applies if you have a modern computer that has liquid cooling. That usually has some type of coolant associated with it. It's a specific type of liquid in there that is designed to transfer heat into the liquid and be able to cool that liquid down very quickly using a fan, a radiator, usually with fans behind it. And it just cycles through your desktop computer to keep your CPU and usually your video card cooler, along with the fans that are in your system. So liquid cooling is something we're very familiar with at a desktop level. In a large data center, the liquid cooling is done really on a much bigger scale. It's a very similar idea, but a much larger scale. Most large data centers like that will have liquid cooling, where they will have a chiller. They will have something that will cool down the water. They will send the water through the pipes within the data center. Sometimes those pipes go directly through some of these larger computing systems. If you've ever worked with large mainframes or large supercomputers, you're probably familiar with cooling them with water. I worked in a data center where we cooled the supercomputer with liquid nitrogen. So we had a cryogenerator that was in the back room, and we had liquid nitrogen that would heat up as it went through the computer, go back into the cryogenerator to be refrozen and put into storage tanks, and then would go back through to simply cycle through. But in all of these cases, with either liquid cooling using water or cooling through liquid nitrogen, it wasn't where it went through one time and we threw it out. The water's still good. So these are closed systems. We're simply cycling through the water. We're heating it up and cooling it, and heating it up and cooling it, and heating it up and cooling it as it goes through the single system. So there's not a lot of water use. There's hardly any water use there. I'm not sure where, if you have a link that talks about AI data centers, which aren't a thing, using an egregious amount of water, I'd love to read more about those. One of the things you always have to challenge yourself with when you're reading about technologies online, especially newer technologies online, is that what I found is 99.9999% of the time when you're reading through these articles, there's some type of technical inaccuracy. And sometimes the technical inaccuracy is very minor. Sometimes it is huge. So you really have to read through them to understand what they're talking about. I'm wondering if somebody was looking at the cooling system of a data center and thought that the water cycles through and then goes away. We throw all the water out. I don't know. I don't know what happens there, what people are thinking. So no, AI data center that's not a thing. It's just a data center. And it is not using an egregious amount of water. AI is not more thirsty than anything else. It is all closed up. It's a closed system. Now, we still we use a lot of power in data centers. So supplementing that power in some way is useful. Solar and other methods can be used, battery backups. There's lots of things we can do, but there's always a cost to all of these technologies, a cost in power, a cost in resources, a cost in the space where we put it. That's the trade-off we have for being a modern society. We have to decide the best way to approach that and scale it as we go forward. And I like that a lot of the data centers now have learned from that big roll up in cryptocurrency, because there were so many people mining certain types of cryptocurrency they used mining as a point of you're working to create the cryptocurrency. You're performing calculations. Therefore, there's a lot of CPU, there's a lot of heat, there's a lot of cooling that's required. And we found ways to create data centers that were relatively self-sufficient, where we weren't pulling any of this power off the grid. We were creating the power ourselves using solar farms. And I think that was something we learned a lot on to be able to use that. I haven't looked at the numbers recently, but I would bet probably your AC cooling in these larger data centers is a pretty expensive cost. Obviously, the infrastructure itself is expensive, but keeping it going, I mean, the daily cost to keep it running, it's probably not your water. It's probably not, certainly not heat. It's probably your air conditioning that does that. There's obviously other power requirements there as well. The goal is to make these systems as self-sufficient as possible, but it's a fine thing to consider and something you should always be thinking about, Freddie. Thank you for that question. You may find new ideas and other things you can do to make your own data center more energy efficient and use less natural resources, and who doesn't want that? Next on our list, a lot of more questions coming in. If you'd like to submit a question, I guess I should put that back up. You can go to professormesser.com/QA to lock in your question that you would like to submit, and I'll be able to see it on my screen here. Let's keep going through this list. Well, this is a fine question and a common one that I run into quite often. This is from Frank, who asks, hello, I've been studying the Security Plus for a week now, and I feel like it has been difficult to retain all of the material. Frank, you are not alone. Frank is absolutely studying the right thing. Frank continues, is there a pro tip on how to study more diligently? I don't know about a pro tip, but I'll give you my tip. We'll see how my go-to is always going to be exam objectives. always, this is a great guide, not only to tell you what's on the exam, but it's a great guide to take you through the objectives. We'll start at the very beginning. So if you go to section 1, general security concepts, section 1.1 is compare and contrast various types of security controls. And the controls are separated into categories and control types. The categories are technical, managerial, operational, physical, and the control types are preventive, deterrent, detective, corrective, compensating, and directive. So the challenge here is to understand these so you can start crossing them off your list. So you might want to start there. Start with understanding what the categories are. Start with understanding what the control types are and the relationships between those. And I show that in my video. And I often say in my video, and I wish they would even put something here, is that a single control that is being added into a combination of a control type and a category is not exclusive to that control type or that category. So this makes it sort of wide open. That's why it's more important that you understand what these things are rather than trying to say, oh, a guard shack fits here. A guard shack couldn't possibly be somewhere else. That's not true. Guard shack may be somewhere else depending on what the requirements are and the context of the question that's being asked. So once you understand this, you check off all these, you feel like you have a good understanding of them, go to the next section. Summarize fundamental security concepts, starting with confidentiality, integrity, and availability, or what we call CIA. Non-repudiation. What is that? Why is that important? What would we do with that? Why do we need that? Next is authentication, authorization, and accounting, AAA. Heard about that one today. What is that? How would we use that? What is authentication? What is authorization? What is accounting? Knowing those different categories will allow you to check that one off your list, and then you keep going through it. Now, here's your challenge, of course. This is page 1 and 2, 3 and 4, 5 and 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and part of page 13. It's enormous. It's huge. There's a lot here. In fact, this might be my opportunity. Someone asked earlier, how would you compare the 601 and the 701 exams? And this is how I would compare these. Where's my Mac? There it is. So let's bring this up so you can really see what we're dealing with here. I put together a comparison between the 601 and the 701 exams. Oh, and now I've changed my screen here. So let me get rid of this so you can see a little bit better. So what I did, if you're trying to show people data, you need a good Venn diagram, right? So here's our Venn diagram. The arrows are on the left side, the SY0-601, this larger circle describes the 1,034 exam objectives that were on the 601 exam. That yellow circle does not really exist anymore because the 601 exam has been retired. So although it's interesting statistically to look at where we came from, we don't have to worry about too many details associated with this. But look how big that circle is. It's a big circle. The 701 exam has 662 objectives, much smaller circle. So they did change the scope of these exams between the 601 and the 701. They completely changed the layout. They changed a lot of the topics in between. And you will notice that of the topics shared between the 601 and 701, 49%, which means on the 701 exam, there are more new topics than old topics. And that's why I tell people, if you're studying from materials that are listing this as the 601 study materials, first, you're studying way too much information that you need to know, and you're missing half of the exam. That's why you must study from 701 materials if you're planning to take the Security Plus exam. Have a look at your books right now. Have a look at your study materials. Make sure they say SY0-701. It is important always, but more important for the Security Plus exam. And this is why, is this Venn diagram. 701 is, I would argue, a little bit easier because there are fewer objectives, but you have to make sure you have all of the right study materials so that you're getting all the new blue content in here. 338 of these exam objectives do not appear on the 701 exam. And then the chat room, they're even saying, Does this imply the 701 is easier? Yeah. Doesn't imply it. It's pretty much telling you that. It's easier not in the difficulty level, but it's easier because there's fewer pieces of information that you need to memorize. That's really what we're saying there, because easier is sort of a broad term, isn't it? There's no specifics there. What we're really saying is because there are fewer objectives, it makes it easier to study for that exam. I would say that the difficulty level of the exams themselves are very similar. I think the challenge that is presented to you with the questions on the 701 exam is very similar to the challenges that are presented to you on the 601 exam. So they didn't make the questions easier. They just made the topics fewer. They're a little bit different there. So it will take you less time to study for the 701, but it still would be just as difficult an exam. Hopefully that makes some sense to you, because that is the thing I wanted to really get across with this image. Now, on our website, on the professormesser.com, I give you this comparison and I break down for you all of the topics from the 601 that were dropped, and I take and compare and I add, here's all the topics on the 701 that were added. I don't think anybody is in the place now where they're converting or moving from one to the other, but there you go. The 601 had no ports on it. The 701 has no ports on it. There's a lot that was removed from the 601, but I think a lot of people have an idea of what was removed that isn't actually the case. So another one of those things that we need to keep in mind as we are going through study materials. So that's my recommendation. Grab the exam objectives, use that as your guide. It might take you a month to get through all of those objectives. It might take you 3 months to get through all of those objectives. It might take you 6 months or more to get through all of the objectives. That doesn't matter. The goal is that you go through every single objective and you know what it means. You know how to implement it in an environment. You know what all of these things are about. So that's the important part as you go through this. Focus on the objectives, and I think you'll be fine. Let's keep going through this list. I'm going to take a sip really quick so we can keep this going. More questions in this list. We're going to keep going through all of these. Oh, here's a good one that I think a lot of you will be familiar with. This is from Not That Connection. Here it is. If I can type the right thing on my screen for once, that would be fantastic. We're going to make that happen. And now there's two of me. This is the day right here. How about if we do that? Where did I have myself before? Was it up here or up here? Let's get myself out of the way. So Anonymous asks, I finally moved up from the help desk, but now I have a serious case of imposter syndrome in my new position. Have you ever had to deal with this in your career? And if you did, how did you overcome this feeling? All right, grab a pillow, sit back, and let's talk stories regarding imposter syndrome. If you do not have imposter syndrome, you are in the wrong position in IT. You will always have imposter syndrome, or you should always have imposter syndrome in everything you do, because you will never know everything you need to know. You will never know everything you need to know. There's too much involved in the minutia, in the intricacies of technology to know everything about everything. That's why in many environments, and you've probably seen this as well, you have different people that are subject matter experts, SMEs, because we need more acronyms. So service matter experts or subject matter experts for these different topics become useful, because I have a foundational knowledge in packet captures and protocols, and reading packet captures and understanding what to see in a packet capture. I spent a good part of my career reading packet captures, implementing distributed platforms to capture these packets and to be able to analyze them and report on this information. It is a core competency of things that I know, and I know it really well. I still don't know 100% of it. No one does, but I have a very good foundational knowledge in packets. It's a place where I can live and die. But occasionally I'll have a question about configuring BGP. I'm okay with BGP. In a pinch, I can set it up and configure it properly, but do not have me design a BGP that's a dynamic routing protocol. Do not have me design the BGP implementation for your large multinational company, because I will do a very bad job of it. But what I will do is get on the phone and call my subject matter expert in BGP to assist me with this particular project. And I'll bring them in. They aren't great in packets, but that's okay. I got that one, but I'm not good in BGP. I'm going to call that person and bring them in because they used to work at a multinational company designing and implementing their BGP. Who better to bring in to not only help me with this design, but now I get to leech some of that knowledge out of their brain. I get to learn more about this technology as it goes, and that helps also. So a good set of imposter syndrome is very valuable. It helps you understand where your limitations are. It helps you understand where you can go to learn more, and it helps you grow in your role. And eventually you will probably get to a point that in your particular role, wherever you are, your job has taught you and taught you and taught you. If you ever walk into the office one day and you're thinking, boy, I got this down now. I know about all these technologies I have to deal with. I can troubleshoot these things with my eyes closed. I now am not worried when people present these designs and things that I need to do on the network. Change control is not an issue. Upgrading systems isn't a problem. I have a very solid understanding of all of this. If that's you, you're in the wrong job. Normally, you wouldn't think that way. Normally, you would think, if I know all of this, doesn't that mean I'm in the right job? It does not. Because in IT, the only way to move up is to learn more, is to gain knowledge, is to build that fundamental technical foundation. So that's my recommendation to you, is my hope for you is for you to always have imposter syndrome. That doesn't sound good when I say it like that, but I really do mean it. I want you to always be curious and always be learning and always be moving forward in your career. And what better career to do that in than technology? Because there's always something to learn. There's always an interesting technology coming down the road that nobody knows about yet. And you could now be the expert in that technology if you apply yourself. So you should always be the one willing to ask the questions. And here's the key, by the way, always be willing to say, I don't know. Because not everybody knows everything. You will work with people, I promise you, in this industry who will pretend to know everything. They do not know everything. There's no way, because you can't. They might be very knowledgeable, and maybe they've worked themselves up to that point where they probably should be going to another job, learning more in that particular role. And you may be able to use that knowledge and have them help you with things you don't know. But I would think most of the time, you should be in a position where you can simply tell people, I don't know that one, but I know who to ask. And that's really the important follow-up to that. It's perfectly reasonable to say, I don't know the answer to that question, but I do know who to get the answer from. In my role as a systems engineer, I would often, throughout the week, I would, Monday through Friday, go visit different companies. So on a single day, I might visit 3 or 4 different Fortune 500, Fortune 100 type companies, depending on where we are. So I'll be in Atlanta for the day, and I'll go see 3 or 4 different companies in Atlanta. So I might go to the home goods manufacturer, or I might go to a retailer, or I might go to the soft drink manufacturer, or I might go to see the power company, whatever it might be. We go talk to their security teams. And in every meeting, I will be presented with a question that I don't know the answer to every single time I walk in the door. Did that bother me? No. Of course, I don't know the answer to every question. Now, fortunately, I knew the answers to many questions that were presented to me. So you do have to prep. You do have to prepare yourself before walking into these meetings, that you know the type of scenario you're getting into. And hopefully you have some foundational knowledge that you can build on. But a lot of the time, a question will come up and people go, well, how does that work? Like, I don't know. It's magic. But I do know somebody who's very detailed in that. Let's get them on the phone next week. They'll step us through the whole thing. They're like, great, let's do that. I'd love to get that information. Okay. So you should always feel comfortable saying, I don't know. In fact, the only time you're going to learn is if you tell people you don't know. I do this all the time in training classes. So when in a lot of these roles that we would work through, I would go through a training class and we would be in a room with a bunch of very smart people. I would always sit in the front. So if you're somebody who likes to sit in the front of the room, that's me going into the front. And when we do that, I'm first very focused because there's nothing between me and what I'm watching, this training that we're going through. But if somebody stepped through a series of processes on the board up front, I would be the first one to go, oh, wait a second. You went from 1 to 2 to 7. What happened to everything in between? Can you step me through that? They go, sure. Here's what happens. Here's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I'm like, oh, okay. Got it. Now I'm with you now. Keep going. Let's go through this list. And whenever I didn't understand something, I'd want to stop and say, should we take this offline or should we do this? What do we do on these different processes? That was an opportunity for me to learn. But as I found out when we got outside the room, people would say, thanks for asking that question about 1, 2, and 7. I didn't know what was going on in the middle either. And I would say, well, why didn't you? Why didn't you speak up? Why didn't you say anything? Like, oh, I was embarrassed. I won't let somebody know that I didn't know these things. And I'd say, well, don't worry. If you're in the room with me, I'm happy to be the dumb one because I want to know this. In these particular roles where we're working for someone or you're representing a product that you're working with other people on, you really do need to be the expert in this. So you don't want to walk into a meeting really not knowing. That's the wrong kind of imposter syndrome, is you just being ignorant. You should always have some type of knowledge, but you should more importantly know how to learn from there and to pull in the right people. So I think imposter syndrome is not a bad thing. It's a normal part of what we do. And I think if you're somebody who is working in technology, just get used to it. Just relax in it. You wrap yourself in the imposter syndrome. It's going to be with you all the time. It's different levels. You're not always going to be completely ignorant of what technologies you're getting into. Sometimes you do though. Sometimes they say, you're a smart person, go fix this. Like, I've never seen this, but what are you talking about? I don't know what that, it says technical things on the screen. Go fix that. Okay. Do you have a manual? Is there a website? What is this? Who makes it? And you go from there and you figure it out. Oftentimes, this is something that is an opportunity. Nobody else in the entire company knows how to run this. How have we been working? How has this been operational in the core? They go, we don't know either, but that's why it has a sticker on it that says, do not reboot, because everybody's afraid to reboot it. They don't know what it does. They don't know what happens on the inside of it. The fear is really the part that is unknown. Once you read the manual, work with the software, put it in a lab, see how it's supposed to work, understand more about your local configuration, what you often find at the end of that is you look back and you think, well, that wasn't hard. That wasn't mysterious. That wasn't something we needed to worry about. That was a relatively straightforward application. It's got an executable. Here's a configuration file. It connects with this network card. It's got an IP address. It's like everything else we run. But because you spent the time to understand that very specific technology, you're now the expert. You're the expert in your organization for that technology just because of your imposter syndrome and the fact that you're smart enough to kind of piece together all of these things. That will be the process that happens over and over and over and over again. I can't tell you how many times I look back on something that I was worried about learning and thought, that was easy. That was not as hard as I made that out to be. And I really do make these things scary in my mind. Oh, I don't want to touch that. What if we reboot it and it does, what's going to happen? I don't know what no, it's just a computer running an operating system, loading an executable, referencing a configuration file, and communicating on the network. That's it. So once you break it down and get rid of the mystery, it just becomes another thing that you happen to know. Now that's in your pocket. It's on your list of things that you know. Amazingly, you will be surprised how that little bit of niche knowledge will be able to propel you into different parts of your career. Literally, well, maybe not literally, but almost literally propel you into different parts of your career. It is remarkable. So that's what I would say. Embrace this, embrace the fear. And if you do that, you'll be surprised how much you can learn in this industry. It is remarkable. Next on this list, I know we're at the top of the hour. I'm going to try to fit in a couple of more into this list. Wouldn't it be great if we were literally propelled into our next job? That would, I'm in the next job and I broke my leg, so I was literally propelled into this job. Let's keep going through this list of things. A lot of great questions here, by the way. Thank you for sending these in. I guess I could take this off now that we're at the top of the hour. Oh, here's a good question. This is more of a what's going on behind the scenes kind of question. This is a question from Chris who asks, "Hey, Mister, will your..." I can add some context. Will your exam vouchers ever be available for those overseas? As I mentioned earlier, the exam vouchers on my site are available for people that are in the U.S., Canada, or a U.S. territory. So if you're in the Mariana Islands, I got vouchers for you. If you're in London, England, not so much. If you're in London, Ohio, yes, I have vouchers for you. So I guess it depends on where your focus is in the world, where you live in the world. Vouchers must be used by wherever you happen to be physically in the world. So if you have a U.S. address, but you are physically located somewhere else, that's a different kind of problem. In fact, you have to get approval from CompTIA if you plan to take the exam in a different country than where you normally would live. But we're not talking about that. We're talking about you are a citizen of the UK, you live in London, you want to buy a voucher at a discount, and I don't have any for you. What's up with that? Well, there's a number of challenges associated with that. But of course, there are things we may be able to do in the future to make this process available to other geographies. I'm working with CompTIA right now. As many of you know, a couple of weeks ago, CompTIA updated their website. It's all different now. Their processes are different. Their global store is going to be launching over the coming weeks. So there are things that they are doing that are going to change how they sell or make these vouchers available to other parts of the world. I have a meeting with them tomorrow, as a matter of fact, to have them describe to me what they plan on doing. And I'm hoping I may be able to find a way to expand the scope of that. I just don't have the answer to that currently. All I can really say is stay tuned. Maybe that'll happen. Maybe it won't. I don't know. I'm not committing to anything right now because I don't know what is going to happen. It's a mystery to me as well. But they're going to fill me in. So the mystery will go away for me, and then I'll have to figure out, can I do anything with that? We'll figure it out. We'll find a way eventually to drill down on this and have that happen. Yes, we do have discounted vouchers on our website. You can find out more about those discounts by going to professormesser.com/vouchers or using the vouchers link at the top of the Professor Messer website. More questions. Let's keep going through this list of different things. Question. I get a lot of questions also. There were a couple that came in today that were asking about what type of control is this? What category does this fit in? So I'll make sure I say this again. I said it earlier, but for those of you that are working through that section 1.1, where you have these different security controls and different categories, the security control itself can fit into different categories. They are not, a security control is not exclusive to a single category. It can be in multiple categories. And I think a lot of people, I do mention that in the video, but I think that's sort of missed sometimes when people, maybe they're just looking at the course notes. Maybe they're not, maybe they missed that section of the video or whatever it happens to be. So people will say, all right, a guard gate, what control is that? Well, it could fit many different places. Are we referring to a policy that requires you to have a guard gate that is checking for certain things? Or are you talking about the physical guard gate itself? Or are you talking, see, there's different context there. So that's why I tell people it can fit into multiples. Depends on the context, depends on what you're talking about. So I won't be able to answer any of those questions where people are asking me specifically, where does this fit? Well, it can fit wherever it fits because it can fit in multiple places. You might want to look at that and go through the video again. Maybe that gives you more context. Regarding CEUs, question came in about this. I'm not going to put this on the screen, but I got a couple on this that talked about how you can earn a continuing education unit credit for this video. You do not have to be live. You could be watching this on the replay on demand. You could be watching this months from now. You could be watching this years from now, as long as the content is the content that you need to get a CEU, and you'll know that by looking at the CEU requirements that are on the CompTIA website. As long as you fit with those requirements, you can absolutely earn a CEU by watching this even years later. Years after I record it and post it, you can still earn CEUs from that, and I will accept the CEUs and I will send you back the email. It's just that easy. So absolutely, you can do that. In fact, just so you're aware, CompTIA did change the policies they have for on-demand content like this. If you're watching live, they will take your word for it that you watched live. If you watch this on demand, they require documentation from me. I don't know. That's what they did. I don't understand a lot of things, but that's their policy now. Now, fortunately, whether you watch it live or whether you watch it on demand, I send you an email every time. As long as you request it, I send you the email. As long as that request is in the right format with the right information, you get the CEU. So we're covered either way. We got no problem there at all. So that's why I tell people, don't worry about it. We got you. You're covered. Doesn't matter. I got everything you need based on that. So absolutely. Let's keep going through. I can fit another couple in here before Mrs. Professor Messer comes in here and turns everything off. I have a 2-hour hard stop and I never hit it. And she makes sure to keep me on track. Thankfully, someone does. The next on our list, I want to fit one more question in. Another one of these. Let's make it a good one, shall we? We can get going on this list and work through the details. There was a question here about how I get the course materials. So some people are asking when a new exam comes out. I know a new Security Plus exam hasn't come out in a very long time. It's been years now, a couple of years, a year or so. The question was about when those new exams come out, do I take those exams? I used to take them every time there was a new exam. I would take it just to see what was in there. But what I found after the first 3 or 4 or 5, it was pretty much the same process every time. CompTIA really doesn't change the format of their exams. They don't generally change the structure or how the exam is taken. And they really don't even change much about the style of the exam. And so I no longer really take the exam every single time, primarily because there is that non-disclosure, a candidate agreement, which is really a non-disclosure agreement that you must sign before you take the exam. If I don't sign a non-disclosure agreement, I can talk about the exam. But if I don't take the exam, how do I do that? But it gives me more flexibility in how I talk about the exam if I'm not bound contractually by that candidate agreement. And I took the 301, 401, 501, 601. I've taken 4 different Security Plus exams at this point. I think we can stop doing that. I think for A+, I did the 601, 701, 801, 901, 1000, 1100. This is my 6th A+ course I've created. And we just finished that last one. I think I got it at this point. I don't need to take the exam every single time. Now, if CompTIA dramatically changes how they give these exams, the style of the questions on the exams, then I'm absolutely taking that because I want to know. I want to really be able to do that. I want to jump in there. But the process for the 701, the style and the process is the same as it was for the 601. It's the same as it was for the 501. It's the same as it was for the 401 and so on. So I could take it, but I don't get anything out of it from a helping you perspective. Yeah, I get the certification. That's interesting, but I don't need it at this point. I'm good. I got a job. I'm fine. If I leave, if I go do something else, I'll go take it. But right now I'm good from that perspective. So no, I don't generally take the exams anymore, but that doesn't mean I won't. Because if something does change dramatically, I'm in there. So I want to see it. I want to know. I want to see what you experience. And if so far nothing's changed too dramatically recently, but who knows? They may dramatically change the exams in the future, and I want to be part of that. So I will take the exam if that occurs. There was a question in the chat room about something, what I use here, the type of equipment, what we're doing with it. You know, what is all this stuff? What are all these things that are here? What is this craziness? The entire studio is on this desk. So this is one where if you want to know how any of these things are put together, or at least what I put together, I have it documented on my website. You can go to professormesser.com/studio, or I have links on the homepage of Professor Messer under the additional information section where I have links to the studio equipment. So you'll be able to see what is this crazy mouse that he uses. Isn't that huge? Look at the size of that mouse. This is my hand on the mouse. That's how big the mouse, it's enormous. So what is that thing? What type of keyboard am I using? What is the video switcher I'm using? What type of audio setup do I have? It's all on there. So if you're ever wondering what camera am I pointing to right now? What camera is this that is on me? I just upgraded the camera earlier this year, big end of last year, somewhere in there. So you can learn about all of these latest things that I'm adding to this list. And there are good reasons for most of this. There may be bad reasons for some of it, but they're all done for some type of reason. There's a method to the madness. Trust me on that one. But it's all documented there. If you ever want to know, we got links there. Some of them, those links go over to Amazon. So there is an Amazon affiliate link associated with that, just so you're aware. We don't really get a lot of revenue from Amazon for that, but you know, you've got something there that helps. Every little bit helps when you're online. So we appreciate you having a look at them and clicking on some of those links. It does help us quite a bit. The other question, there was another question here I want to focus on. We did talk about last minute tips, exam objectives. Here's a pretty good one to end with. Somebody says, this is Lee. Let me bring this one up so we can really enjoy the question. That's not the link from Lee. Hey, Professor, love your videos much. Been listening to your courses while driving. Why didn't you do other CompTIA courses like Linux Plus as well? So Linux Plus, that would be a fun one, by the way. The way that we figure out what courses we are doing is based on a number of different criteria. I will not go through all of those for numerous reasons, but most of it is based on what people need to get their first job in IT or get a better job in IT. So it tends to be things that are in relatively high demand. So things like Linux Plus would be a perfect example of this. Linux isn't certainly in high demand. I use Linux as a system administrator all the time. I go back to the Unix days and Solaris and Sun OS even further back, and to DEC before that, DEC before that. So I like Linux and Unix and those technologies. I like Windows. And in the past, you've probably seen that we've had courses on Windows 7. We've had courses on other networking topics. I've had course notes on some Cisco certifications. So anything that is out there that people want to learn, I am interested in creating content for it. What we're looking at today, and we're not committing to any of these, but if I had to look at my list of things that are important to me, Linux is important to me, cloud is important to me, networking in general is important to me, and increasingly, maybe decreasingly these days, AI to some degree would be interesting and useful. I don't know that everybody likes my take on AI, but it would be an interesting course in any case to be able to do. I think there's some reality finally setting into artificial intelligence and where it really fits. We're kind of past the exciting phase of that technology, and we're getting more into the realistic phase, which I think is great. That people are starting to understand, oh, it isn't as smart as we thought it was. Oh, it's not as accurate as we thought it was. How can we make it better? How can we make it do different things? And that I think it would be a fun one to do. What other courses? Microsoft has, things are constantly changing with Microsoft, but Microsoft courses are always in demand. And doing some on cloud would be just really interesting, I think. AWS is extremely popular. That would be a fun one to do as well. So we're always making a list and deciding what to do with it. But there's also a lot of great learning content that we can still do for A+, Network+, and Security+. There's plenty of opportunities there and plenty of openings on things that could be done. So I think there's a lot to work through and to become familiar with. But how do we choose which one to go with? And when do we do that? So these are the challenges that I have as someone who has a company that makes these things. Where do we fit that into the schedule? And we'll see. I tend to not announce a course until the course is done. So I don't generally tell you something's coming, and I don't generally set a particular time frame for that, because when you deal with, certainly with technology and with courses in general, it's very difficult sometimes to know when you will be done. And setting arbitrary dates on these types of things, in my mind, only creates a less valuable course, a less quality course. If I'm able to spend the appropriate amount of time creating something that I'm proud of and something that I think would be valuable, then I think we've done the right job. But if we're rushing to hit a date that we've just imagined in the future, a lot of companies do this, I think it creates substandard products. So we don't do that. So I think that's where we go with those things. I think if you were somebody working in technology, certainly in project management, you know exactly what I'm talking about. So that's why we sort of focus on that side of things. And other things that are there, there's a lot here. Let's kind of focus on this one too, because I've been here. This is every time I take an exam, by the way. Jeremiah says, I'm preparing to take my exam. Kind of nervous. Do you have any suggestions to help me? I am the worst test taker you will find. I am awful with these standardized tests. I can stand up in front of people now to a room full of 1,000 people and have a conversation and talk to them about a topic. Those are the things that I would normally do in jobs that I've had in the past. Got it. Not a problem. You had to work on that. You had to get there. You couldn't just walk out the very first time and hit a home run. You sort of had to learn those skills as you went. Same thing for me with taking tests, but I don't take a lot of tests. So I would always have a challenge that when I walk in the door, I'd be really nervous. A lot of anxiety. I want to do well on this exam. I don't want to have to pay for the exam again, which only creates more anxiety, which only means that perhaps it affects my grade even more. These things have a negative effect. One of the tips that I think is really useful, and you should consider doing this if you're taking the A+, Network+, Security+, or really any industry certification exam. I mentioned earlier that when you start the exam, they give you the CompTIA candidate agreement on the screen. Now, if you've never seen the candidate agreement, it is available on the CompTIA website, so you can read through it before you go in the room. The CompTIA candidate agreement, it's an agreement, it's a non-disclosure agreement. They tell you exactly what you can and cannot say when you leave the room. It's all listed here. You could, of course, read through this prior to going into the room, and I recommend that you do. But they give you like 15 minutes before the exam time starts to read through this entire agreement and click the I agree button at the bottom. There's a lot here, as you can see. So they give you a lot of time to read through it. I say, a lot of people, I've seen them, a lot of people just scroll the bottom, they click OK, and they keep moving. But they just gave you 15 minutes to sit around and do nothing. And it's a great time to burn off some of the adrenaline, some of the anxiety, to become a little more comfortable in the room because you just sat down. There might even be other people in the room. You're, in a new place. I'm taking this exam. Well, let's read this. For purposes of this agreement, the terms defined in this section shall have the meaning set forth below. The fact that this is so boring works in your favor. It's just a legal document. What could be more boring than a legal document? Candidate information shall mean all information related to you collected by CompTIA. So if you can keep yourself awake and just read through this, just spend 15 minutes not doing anything but reading through this thing. At the end of the 15 minutes, you've kind of worked out a little bit of that anxiety. In fact, one of the things you'll probably notice when you start reading this agreement, you're just reading words and you're not comprehending because everything is just moving at such a fast pace in your brain. But then when you get down into it, now you're reading it like, oh, now I understand what it's saying. Now you're at a point where you can recognize English again. You can interpret the language that is being presented to you, which I think you will agree is pretty important if you're taking an exam. So it gives people a lot of time to really think about the topics that are here, to really settle into the exam time. It's a great way to get rid of some of the anxiety, focus on the exam, and really become more directly connected to the screen that is in front of you. And I think if you're planning to take one of these certification exams, that's a pretty important thing to consider. You want to be as comfortable as possible when you're sitting in that chair. You want to be sure that when you're done with the exam that you did the best possible job you could have done. And that is all you're really hoping to do in these exams. You have no idea during the exam if you're going to pass or if you're going to fail. There's nothing giving you any feedback. It is completely you answering questions, and at the end of it, you're hoping for the best. That's sort of the scenario that you're going to find yourself in. And it's a challenging one if you've never taken one of these exams before. In my career, I've probably taken, 20, 25 different industry certification exams in one way or the other. They're all pretty much the same. But I never was really able to get rid of the anxiety I have when I walk into the room. It's just something I carry around. And you just have to learn how to deal with it in a way that diminishes it and doesn't affect your exam time. And for me, it was reading through the non-disclosure agreement, reading through the candidate agreement. That worked great for me. Maybe that's something that will work great for you as well. Well, I think with that, I'm way past time. I've got to ask for forgiveness from Mrs. Professor Messer. I'm sure she'll be okay with it. It's something that we love to do, these live streams. I can't help but spending as much time as possible. And I think we all want you to get the information you need to be able to walk into that exam room and do the best job you can do on the Security Plus exam the very first time. And if it doesn't work out good the first time, all you have to do is take it again. This is the great thing about industry certification exams. You never fail until you stop taking the exams. If you don't pass, you can work through that. Nobody died. The world did not end. There's no big problems with that. You just take the exam again. So if you keep that in mind, I think you're going to do fine when you walk into those exam rooms. Just know that there's always something else you do next, and there will be another exam somewhere in your future anyway. It's just get comfortable with where you are. It'll be something you do throughout your entire career. Thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you for being there in the first hour and answering questions with us. Thank you for your questions in the second hour, which to me are really the most important and interesting part of this, is getting your feedback on these. We do one of these study groups every month. You can join us earlier in the month for our A+, our Network Plus, and also the Security Plus study groups. They're always available to find on our calendar at professormesser.com/calendar. Thank you so much for joining us. We will see you next time on the Security Plus study group.